Legal analyst Modidima Mannya joins us now via Zoom for a little bit more. Advocate, thank you so much indeed for joining us. I'm not sure where to start with this one because De Ruyter is potentially facing lawsuits from many sides. Yesterday, the Democratic Alliance saying that they're going to enforce the process of Information Act on him, PAIA, and now we're hearing the ANC saying that they want him to prove what he's saying. Let's start with what he said. He hasn't named anybody, so he hasn't broken a law yet, defamation or anything.
Yes, I think two things. One, he has somewhat suggested that the ANC is being fed through Eskom, which I think is a very serious allegation. And obviously, if I was the Secretary of the ANC, I would also demand that he provide us with supporting information and evidence. And of course, if I was a member of parliament, I would have demanded the same. I'm more or less inclined toward the approach of the DA to say, let's first get the facts, let's get the information so that we can consider the correct course of action. But we must also bear in mind that Mr. De Ruyter made these allegations whilst he was the CEO of Eskom. And whatever action that is taken in law may have to also include Eskom because he was acting probably in his course and scope of his employment as a CEO of Eskom.
All right, so let's split that up then. Let's start with the Eskom issue. He says that that there was corruption, but many people have said this before. We had an senior executive at Eskom who left saying that one of the problems there was corruption. It has been out there for a very, very long time. The state capture has volumes on it. So why would this be a problem?
Well, I don't think it's much of a problem, but because you are correct that these allegations have been there. And to a very great extent, they have not been vigorously refuted, maybe because they have been dealt with politically. I think the current situation is very unfortunate because we have got an unfortunate fallout of people who one would have thought they would focus on the problem at hand, which is our electricity crisis. You'll remember that Mr. De Ruyter himself has faced accusations from even people senior in government. I'm not sure whether he's retaliating or whatever the case may be. But the bottom line in this whole equation is whether the facts are there or not, there is also a very strong perception in public that this is real. And I think this calls for a proper investigation because one of the dangers is that we'll keep on hearing about this corruption, without anybody providing the evidence so that action can be taken. For instance, now, there are allegations, he made the allegation that he reported some of the things with regard to Mpumalanga and nothing happened. But we have heard today what the Minister of Finance says, that they've set up a task team, that people were arrested. The public doesn't know all these things. Of course, partly, you are not going to go to the police and say, give us an update now of what's going on. Now, we have this problem that we are now trapped in a situation where we believe that there's wholesale corruption that is not being dealt with. Whether that is a perception or not, but that's what the public thinks and believes.
Okay, let's go to the next step. Can he actually name somebody? Because the moment he does that, he does open himself up to litigation, especially if it's a conversation that's happened between him and another person. He can't prove it.
Well, look, I mean, if he makes these allegations, he must be able to support them with evidence. And one hopes that he will help this nation and provide the evidence because other than him being sued, there's a broader public interest here. But nobody's going to successfully sue you if what you are saying is true and it's supported by evidence. So to the extent that he has got the evidence to support his allegations, he's got nothing to fear.
All right. For as long as he doesn't name a person, are we saying that it's only the party at the moment that's injured?
Yes, partly. Remember, even organizations such as political parties, which are non-trading, can sue for defamation. Of course, the terms are quite strict in terms of the success. But I think we also do not want to encourage people to make statements and withhold part of the information. I mean, for instance, if he says, and if this involves the cabinet minister, this minister is not named, or if it involves a senior member in parliament, this person is not named, what are we to make of it, you know? So it can't be, as I say, if he's got the evidence to support it, he must produce the evidence. He has made a statement in public. Other than the issue of his dispute with the government and the lawsuits, it's in the public interest that we know who is he talking about.
All right. This Promotion of Access to Information Act, how does that work? What can be gotten out of it through that process?
Well, the Promotion of Access to Information Act basically promotes or ensures the facilitation that people can have access to information held by the state or organs of the state to assess their rights or to assess the public good. What I think may be complicated with this matter is that listening to what Mr. de Ruyter says, some of the things I think he expresses his own personal views, which may not translate into information that is held by Eskom. So the request will have to be directed to Eskom. I think the assumption is that what he's talking about is information that is there at Eskom. So what the DA says is that, okay, let's check this information, let's get the information on this 1 billion rand that has been allegedly stolen every month. Let us find the information about this minister, because part of, I think, the statement that Mr. de Ruyter made seems to suggest that there is some hard evidence and or documents related to what he said, and I think by his personal opinions.
All right. What about Eskom? I think you might have hinted. He said these things whilst he was the chief executive. Is Eskom potentially an injured party because he's divulging company secrets, inverted commas?
Look, I must say that there's no secret about corrupt activities. I mean, corrupt activities must be reported to the police. This is not secret. What could have probably happened is that he may have not followed the internal policies of Eskom. I don't know why he didn't. Obviously, he would have been expected to have followed that. But I think the bottom line here is that if there's evidence of criminality, you can't hide behind your internal policies or saying I'm injured. Eskom is a public utility. We are all shareholders as the public in Eskom, and we are interested. We are facing load shedding now. And the public really wants to know that Eskom is going to be properly managed. You just saw that the minister has allocated over 250 billion as part of the bailout, and you can see that there are concerns about what the money will be used for. So the issues of accountability, transparency, and the economic use of resources is our constitutional imperative. Yeah. If you go to our constitution, you'll see that these are some of the key values that are set out in our constitution.
Saftu is also wanting to use the law to force his hand. I am curious, we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. It may be that he's already laid a charge. In that case, does he have to answer to any of these third parties if it's in the hands of the authorities already?
Certainly not. If he has already reported the matter to a competent authority, he doesn't have to answer to anyone. I'm not sure what informs the view of Saftu based on what we've heard from Mr. de Ruyter, that he may, that Section 34 may assist them to get him to say who the culprit is. I don't necessarily think that's the purpose of Section 34, and I don't think you can use it for that purpose. What Section 34 will do, it will expose him to criminal conduct if he has not reported it to the relevant authorities. But it's not intended to report it. You don't report in terms of Section 34 so that somebody can make information available. That is what the Promotion of Access to Information Act will do. If he has reported, for instance, the police will be in possession of the information. They have no obligation to give it to SAFTU, so it might not necessarily serve a purpose.
All right. I haven't had a chance to see the entire interview, but the interviewer said, "Is this a feeding trough for the ANC?" And then he said yes. By saying yes, is it the same as him saying what the reporter has put to him?
Well, I think his exact words was that the evidence suggests so. So what that means or may mean is that he's got evidence which may point to the Eskom being a feeding trough. And I think the request for information is what will answer this question, because then that information should be with Eskom and you will have to provide the information. Yes, I mean, whatever the question was, what in defamation or in any other injury, you would have to analyze the words that are said to be offensive. So he says that the evidence that is there suggests, so basically saying yes.
Okay. All right. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the coming days, but very interesting conversation. Thanks so much indeed for joining us and giving us your insights on this matter.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So this case unfolding, that was legal analyst advocate Mannya sharing his thoughts with us on this issue. And it looks like Andre de Ruyter perhaps is going to have to step forward and answer a few questions, particularly with the DA's Process to Information Act. We'll have to wait and see.